Okay, cool. That just happened to work perfectly. Okay, good morning. Today we are going to be talking about classroom culture and how it benefits us as teachers to have a strong classroom culture, and not only that, what having a strong classroom culture means. Our objective for the day is we are going to define classroom culture and collaborate with each other to create ideas to implement strategies to improve classroom culture on our campus. I have you a couple of resources if you want to look at your yellow papers. The first is an article from John Dewis. The article is How to Open a Class to Its Culture. He gives us a couple of tips. On the back of the first page, he has all that information in an infographic, if you would rather look at the information that way. And of course, on the third page, we have a KWL chart, which is where we're going to be starting. And of course, as always, we have each other. We all teach different content areas. We are all at different experience levels, and so we also have each other that we can use when going through this conversation. So talking about classroom culture, if you go to your KWL chart, in the first column, which is what we know, who we are and where we are, if you will just take, let's say 2 minutes, the first thing I would like you to do, and this is 100% for you, I will not ask you to share out, is rate yourself on a scale from 1 to 5. How strong do you consider yourself to be as a teacher when it comes to creating and sustaining a strong classroom culture? The next question says, how would you define classroom culture and why is it important, if it is? And then last, what strategies have worked for you in your classrooms in the past? I'll give you about 2 minutes. If you want to go through those really quickly, you can give me a couple of responses, a couple of answers. Give me 1 minute. I'll ask you to finish your thoughts, finish your sentences. About 20 seconds to finish your sentences, finish your thoughts. Okay, so just to kind of get a feel of where we are, if y'all will go around and either tell me a definition or what you think classroom culture is, know it to be, or strategies that have worked for you in the past. Kind of where you are currently with classroom culture. So, Ms. Parker, can I start with you?
Okay, I'd say classroom culture is the total environment within a class, includes the setting, the tone, the relationship, and respect between teacher to students, students to students, just as a whole.
I love it. Total environment within a class. I like what you said about tone. And I like what you said about respect to everybody, between everybody. Skill that you have, anything you wanted to add to this?
I think that's perfect.
Okay. Do you have any strategies that you wrote down that kind of work for you in your classroom?
That's more of my what I want to know, because I think that I'm fortunate this year that 95% of my kids are the same kids I had last year.
Oh.
So we already have like an understanding of how to respect each other. So we established that last year.
Okay.
So I'm just in it.
Okay, I love it. Coach Bailey, either a definition that you have that's different from the one we have on the board, or a strategy that you have used that seems to work.
Being a first year teacher, a classroom contract of like student to student, student to teacher, teacher to student, and then everyone to school.
Did you do this year?
I did.
Did you find it beneficial?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
It set up mutual respect between me and the students.
Okay.
Respect for me, or respect for me to them, and then them to me.
Okay. Anything else?
That's all.
Okay. If you will look at your article, you have 10 quick tips on how to improve or how to open a class to its culture. If you amongst yourselves will divide up the 10 however y'all want to do it, is totally fine. If you will just read your tips, it says you're more than welcome to take notes on your article. This is for you to take with you. So if you'd like to underline, circle, box, anything you would like to is totally fine. I want to give you about 2 minutes to divide up the article and read through your tips and figure out if you have anything you want to say about it. So you've got 2 minutes.
Okay, I'll do 1, 2, 3.
I call 4, 5, 6, and 7.
And I'll read 8, 9,
Don't make kids listen. Start by listening to them. Present material to hear what they think about it. Otherwise, they might not think about it. Don't talk to kids like they're kids. This would imply that you know better on the most important things you don't. Talk to them as equals. Don't label kids or yourself, but be forgiving when they label themselves, one another, or you. Ask what their words mean rather than calling them on insensitivities.
Don't dictate the terms of conversation about race or class. If everything demands scrutiny, thorny topics will be at home in our conversation. Don't hide race or class hoping to steer around difficulty. More security comes when you're able to discuss anything. There's no final word on these topics. Don't act like an expert. Make it clear that you're relying on students to help you figure things out. Then rely on students to help you figure things out. Don't stick to your guns. You gain authority by being flexible. Give yourself permission to change your mind publicly in response to what students say.
Don't set up boundaries. The class will discover its own boundaries by setting up boundaries. But setting up boundaries sets in motion the fear that someone will cross them, and it might be you. Don't rely solely on students or yourself. What I call the third thing in the room is a great source of inquiry. Whether it's a text, a math problem, or a historical episode, let it speak. And don't feel silence. Bad classrooms are silent out of fear. Great classrooms.
Good morning, teachers. I need the following individuals to come see Miss Marin in the front office. Coach Hill, Coach Bailey, Mr. Sparks, Sergeant Harrell, Miss McAllister, Miss McGowan, Miss Nungarai, Miss Biggs. Please come to the front office.
Bye. I don't know if you're gonna go. You gotta go. So if y'all will do me a really quick favor and look at the ones that y'all read, and I'll take over for Bailey since he's stepping up. Did you read 7, 8, 9? 8, 9, and 10. 8, 9, and 10. Okay. And if you will look at the ones you specifically read, on the L part of your KWL chart, this is what I kind of like to do with this information. Of the tips that you read, which one do you think would have the biggest impact or make an impact? Which of these tips would you be able to try in your classroom this week? And which of these tips would you recommend to a new struggling teacher who just left? All right, and at the end we'll just simply share the tip that we thought would be most beneficial. About 20 seconds. Come back together. Who read 1, 2, and 3?
Me.
Miss Parker, which one do you think would have the biggest impact, not just in your classroom, but in classrooms in general, of the 3 that you read?
don't talk to kids like they are kids.
Why?
Talking to them as equals gives them the opportunity to express who they are. I think too many times kids are not given the credit that they know what actually, that they know as much as going on, and you get a much better response from them when you do talk to them as equals.
Last week I was in a training and they taught us that, and I wasn't aware of this, that we have 3 different voices we use with the kids. We have the kid voice, we have the adult voice, and then we have like the peer voice, where it's just simply you telling them what's going on. The adult voice scolds, yells, gets onto them. The peer voice, the kid voice is whiny. Like, I've created all this and you're not listening. Like we're little children whining at the kids. The adult voice is one that says, sit down and shut up now. And then the voice that's always most effective to use with kids is the peer voice. Like you're talking to them like you're equal. And so like is the most effective way to address children is the peer voice. Are there any of these tips that you would recommend to a struggling New Year teacher starting out?
This is the biggest tip of all. I'm looking through my screen. I think this would be
The same one?
the same one.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of times as teachers we come in and we want to lay down the law and show them who's dominant. And I think I've done that before, and I know it turns into a battle. Instead of a classroom, it turns into a battle. And so it's definitely not as effective. Ms. Keel, of the 4 that you had, which one would you think is the most effective?
The most effective is.
Or the biggest impact?
Out of the 4 that I read, the biggest impact would be don't hide race or class hoping to steer around difficulty. I think that it's a very sensitive subject, but with everything that's going on in the world, the kids don't need you to hide from that. If they have genuine questions, or you can have a genuine discussion, we can teach them how to be respectful and have those conversations.
It's an interesting line where we want to be like an area of protection for kids and shelter them from things, but we also we need to prepare them for, and we're not putting them in a bubble.
Good morning, teachers. I still need Coach Hayes, Miss
like,
McAllister, Miss McGowan, and Miss Nungarai to come see Miss Marin in the front office. Thank you.
That was Nungarai. I didn't know that. Any of those? Is a different one that you would recommend to a new teacher, or is it the same one?
Well, I did. For a new teacher, don't act like an expert, because I think that shows the students that we can all improve. Like I'm not, even though this is what I went to college for, I can still learn something new. And then the one that I am actually going to try in my classroom this week is the don't stick to your guns. I think that for me, I try to be tough and it's my way or the highway, but there's a lot of stuff that I've benefited this year. I've finally let them do their math and pen, and that's one less struggle I have to deal with.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Do you ever find that whenever you admit you're wrong or that you don't know something, the kids just freak out? Like, what?
I think it's the best thing you can do though. That helps build that respect when they realize that you can be
For
wrong
sure.
as
And
well.
especially in a math class or a foreign language class like mine, I'm you're going to make mistakes. And so the sooner we realize that this is a place where it's okay to make mistakes and it's not a big deal. First, and you're 12 years old, I think that sets up a really good culture in your classroom, that they're not ashamed of showing something on the board even if it's wrong.
Yeah.
I read yours because you went to the office. Did you have one that stuck out to you?
The don't set up boundaries.
Okay.
The class will discover its own boundaries, but setting up boundaries sets in motion the fear that someone will cross them, and it might be you. Once again, being a first-year teacher, I found that out quickly that boundaries are going to be crossed all the time, and so if I don't have them set in stone, then I won't have to worry about me crossing them or having to worry about them being fearful.
It's also really exhausting, I think, to have really strict boundaries and then that's your focus, is your boundaries rather than learning. If y'all will do me one more favor before we head out, on the what I want to know, even if you've already written some, at the bottom, if you have any additional questions or want additional resources or trainings, I do have my email address up here, and I can probably come up with some trainings or videos for y'all if y'all would like any more information on class culture. So if not, you are free to take that article with you, and I appreciate your time.